Disturbing, scary, true Starbucks horror story, The Barista's Shadow. In a bustling city center, a Starbucks store known for its cozy ambience and friendly staff became the scene of unexplained occurrences that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. The staff, especially a barista named Elise, began noticing strange happenings during the late-night shifts. Elise, a cheerful employee who had worked there for years, started to feel an inexplicable dread when closing the store. The machines would whir to life without being touched. Cups would fall off shelves with no one near them, and the sound of footsteps echoed through the empty store. But what truly unnerved her was the shadowy figure she began to see in the reflections of the store's windows and mirrors, always just out of direct sight. A distorted silhouette that seemed to watch her. The incidents escalated during the week leading up to Halloween, when the store was decorated with themed ornaments and dimmed lights for ambience. Customers and staff reported cold spots near the back of the store, and the faint sound of whispering filled the air when the music was turned down. One night, while closing alone, Elise experienced the full intensity of the haunting. As she cleaned the espresso machines, the lights flickered, and the temperature dropped sharply. In the window's reflection, she saw the shadowy figure standing directly behind her. Turning around, there was nothing there, but the sense of being watched was overwhelming. She rushed to finish closing duties, but every step was shadowed by the presence of the unseen watcher. When she turned off the lights and locked the door, she saw the figure again in the glass, clearer now, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Panicked, she left and vowed never to close alone again. The next day, Elise and her co-workers searched the store for any explanation. They discovered an old, sealed door behind a recently installed bookshelf in the back. Curiosity overcame fear, and they opened it to reveal a small, forgotten room filled with old furniture and Starbucks merchandise from years past. In the center of the dust-covered floor was a barista apron and a name tag with a name that chilled Elise to the bone. It was the name of a former employee who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. The story can continue with the exploration of the room's history, the disappeared employee's connection to the current haunting, and the staff's efforts to understand and resolve the terrifying events unfolding in their beloved Starbucks store. Since no initial story was provided, I'll start with a disturbing, scary, true Starbucks horror story, and then continue it without providing an ending, so the story can be continued later. Disturbing, scary, true Starbucks. Horror story, The Barista's Secret. In a bustling Starbucks in the heart of the city, patrons came and went, sipping their lattes and tapping away on their laptops. Oblivious to the dark history of the building, the staff, a mix of friendly faces, seemed normal enough, except for one barista, Ethan. New to the team, Ethan was quiet, always working the late shift and displaying an odd fascination with the antique mirror hanging in the back corner of the cafe, an item left from the building's previous incarnation as a Victorian-era bookstore. Customers began to notice strange occurrences. Coffees that seemed to stir themselves, whispers in the restroom where no one else was present, and shadows that moved against the logic of the light. However, the most disturbing events centered around Ethan. Regulars talked of seeing him converse quietly with his reflection in the mirror. His expression, one of intense concentration, as if receiving instructions. One night, a customer, Mia, stayed late, working on a deadline. As the clock ticked past midnight, she noticed Ethan standing before the mirror, not making coffee or cleaning up, but staring into its depths. Curiosity piqued. Mia pretended to focus on her laptop while watching Ethan's interactions with the mirror. She observed him mouth silent words, his eyes never wavering from his reflection. The air around him seemed to shimmer, and the lights flickered as if responding to his presence. Mia felt a chill down her spine when she saw his reflection smile back, its expression malevolent and alien to Ethan's usually impassive face. The story continues with Mia's growing suspicion and fear as she delves into the mystery of Ethan and the antique mirror, uncovering the cafe's dark past and the sinister secrets that lurk within its walls. Secrets that bind Ethan to an entity from the other side of the mirror, waiting to cross into our world. Mia, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, began to research the history of the Starbucks building and its eerie mirror. She discovered that the site was once a bookstore owned by a man rumored to be deeply involved in the occult, who mysteriously disappeared without a trace. The mirror, according to local lore, was an artifact he had brought back from his travels, believed to be a gateway to another realm. Over the following days, Mia noticed more anomalies. Customers would leave the cafe with no memory of their visit. Books and personal items would rearrange themselves, and the air would occasionally fill with a scent of old, musty pages, as if the bookstore still lingered in some form. Ethan, meanwhile, became increasingly withdrawn, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he were not sleeping, or perhaps was plagued by more than just physical exhaustion. Determined to understand the connection between Ethan and the mirror, Mia stayed later each night, feigning work, but intently observing. One evening, she witnessed a chilling scene. Ethan, in a trance-like state, conversed with a shadowy figure in the mirror. His reflection twisted into a grotesque version of himself. The figure seemed to be pulling at Ethan, urging him to step closer, as if trying to swap places with him. Mia, realizing the danger, decided to confront Ethan, gently probing about the mirror and his interest in it. Ethan, caught off guard, initially resisted, but eventually confided in Mia. He revealed that since starting work at the Starbucks, he'd been haunted by dreams of the mirror's shadowy realm, a place of whispers and darkness, where an entity, the original bookstore owner, turned into a malevolent spirit, sought to escape its imprisonment. The story pauses here, with Mia and Ethan standing at the brink of uncovering a hidden, supernatural plot that ties the Starbucks to a netherworld, threatening to spill its darkness into the mundane world. Their next steps would determine the fate of the cafe, and perhaps their own, as they delve deeper into the mystery of the mirror and the entity that seeks to break through it. As Mia delved deeper into the history of the Starbucks location, she uncovered records of the old bookstore that once stood there. Known for its collection of rare and occult books, the owner, a reclusive man rumored to dabble in the dark arts, had vanished under mysterious circumstances, and the bookstore had burned down shortly after, only to be replaced by the coffee shop years later. Ethan's behavior grew increasingly peculiar, his interactions with the mirror becoming more frequent and intense. Mia noticed that objects around him, especially those reflective in nature, seemed to distort or move of their own accord. Other employees spoke of strange dreams and eerie feelings, especially when closing the shop at night. All paths in their stories unconsciously winding back to Ethan and the mirror. One evening, Mia secretly followed Ethan after work and watched as he entered an old, run-down building a few blocks from the Starbucks. She researched the property and discovered it was owned by the last descendant of the bookstore's owner, a connection that chilled her to the bone. Determined to understand the link between Ethan, the mirror, and the building, Mia enlisted the help of a friend knowledgeable in supernatural lore. They speculated that the mirror served as a portal or conduit, connected to the building Ethan frequented, perhaps housing the remnants of the bookstore's cursed collection, or serving as a focal point for the dark rituals once performed there. Their investigation led to a night of surveillance, where they observed Ethan engaging in what appeared to be a ritual, using the mirror in the Starbucks as a gateway. The reflection in the mirror shifted, revealing not Ethan's face, but that of another man, possibly the long-lost bookstore owner, his features twisted in a sinister grin. The story pauses here, with Mia and her friend on the brink of unraveling a supernatural mystery tied to the Starbucks location, Ethan's true identity or purpose, and the ominous legacy of the mirror. The stakes rise as they consider how to confront the growing threat, knowing that whatever lies on the other side of the mirror is gaining strength and possibly preparing to cross over into their world. Mia, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, decided to investigate further. She began by researching the history of the building, discovering it was once owned by a Victorian occultist rumored to have dabbled in dark magic and mirror scrying, using reflective surfaces as gateways to other realms. The mirror in the café, ornately framed and seemingly out of place, was likely a relic from that era, possibly imbued with residual energies or entities from its previous owner's experiments. Over the next few days, Mia noticed more oddities linked to Ethan and the mirror. Objects near the mirror would occasionally move on their own, and the temperature around it was always noticeably colder. Ethan's behavior became increasingly erratic, his conversations with the mirror growing more intense, as if he was arguing with an unseen adversary. Determined to uncover the truth, Mia stayed late again, pretending to work while keeping a watchful eye on Ethan. As the cafe emptied and the night grew deeper, Ethan approached the mirror, his demeanor urgent. Mia, hiding behind a shelf, overheard him pleading with his reflection, begging for more time and promising to fulfill an unknown task. Suddenly, the mirror's surface rippled like water, and a shadowy figure appeared beside Ethan's reflection. The figure was humanoid, but distorted, with with elongated limbs and a face that was a blur of darkness. The air around the mirror thickened, and a sense of oppressive malice filled the cafe. Ethan, in a state of panic, turned to leave, but stopped when the figure in the mirror spoke. Its voice, a bone-chilling whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It demanded something from Ethan, something that he was reluctant to give. The nature of their conversation suggested a deal or pact between Ethan and the entity, with high stakes for both. Mia, realizing the danger and depth of the situation, knew she had to act. But before she could decide on a course of action, the entity in the mirror noticed her reflection. Its focus shifted, and a cold dread washed over her as its gaze seemed to pierce through the glass, locking onto hers. The story pauses here, with Mia caught in a dangerous game between Ethan and the entity within the mirror. Her role inadvertently becoming more significant as she faces the dark history and supernatural forces entwined with the Starbucks cafe. Mia's discovery of the entity's awareness of her presence marked a turning point in the haunting at the Starbucks. Realizing she was now directly involved, she sought to understand the nature of the pact between Ethan and the mirror-bound entity. Over the following days, she carefully interacted with Ethan, trying to glean more about his connection to the mirror without revealing her knowledge of the nocturnal encounters. Ethan, increasingly haggard and anxious, remained guarded, but his slips of conversation hinted at a deadline approaching, a task he was bound to complete that he deeply feared. Mia's research into the occult practices of the building's original owner led her to ancient texts describing mirror scrying as a means to communicate with other realms, often resulting in pacts or exchanges with entities seeking entry into the mortal world. Meanwhile, the cafe itself grew more oppressive. Customers and staff reported feeling watched, and the once welcoming atmosphere turned stifling, as if the building itself was bracing for an impending storm. The mirror's influence expanded, with reflections showing not the cafe, but glimpses of a shadowy, distorted landscape, a realm parallel and intertwined with ours. One night, as the deadline loomed, Mia stayed behind, hidden, as Ethan confronted the entity in the mirror. The air around them crackled with energy, and the entity's form became clearer, its features terrifying yet compelling. It demanded that Ethan fulfill his end of the pact by opening a doorway to allow it, and others like it, into our world. Ethan, torn between fear of the entity and the catastrophic consequences of obeying, hesitated. At that moment, Mia intervened, revealing her presence and confronting both Ethan and the entity. She argued that the pact was based on deception, that Ethan was coerced into agreement without understanding the true nature of what he was dealing with. The entity, amused and intrigued by Mia's boldness, paused in its coercion of Ethan. It proposed a new deal. If Mia could solve a riddle that had stumped occultists for centuries, it would release Ethan from the pact. However, if she failed, she would take his place. The story pauses here, with Mia facing a perilous challenge that holds not just her fate and Ethan's in the balance, but also the safety of the mortal world against the encroaching darkness from beyond the mirror. The Starbucks Café, a nexus of supernatural forces, becomes the arena for a high-stakes battle of wits and wills. Mia, now entangled in a dangerous game with the entity, accepted the challenge, her mind racing to find a solution that could save both Ethan and herself without unleashing the entity upon the world. The riddle, cryptic and ancient, hinted at the nature of reality and the thin veil between worlds, a puzzle that tied directly to the entity's desire to cross into the mortal realm. As she pondered the riddle, the atmosphere in the Starbucks grew tense, the air thick with the power emanating from the mirror. The entity watched her with cold amusement, confident in its supremacy and the complexity of its challenge. Ethan, meanwhile, hovered between hope and despair, his fate hanging in the balance. Mia realized that the answer to the riddle wasn't just in the words, but in the nature of the mirror and the entity itself. She deduced that the mirror served as both a window and a barrier between worlds, and the riddle was a metaphysical key to understanding and manipulating this boundary. Her solution would need to respect the balance of power, offering the entity a semblance of victory while safeguarding the mortal realm. Drawing on her research and intuition, Mia proposed her answer, weaving it into a narrative that reflected the entity's history, its bindings, and the laws governing the interaction between their worlds. The entity, intrigued and momentarily caught off guard by the depth of her insight, scrutinized her words, searching for deceit or error. As the entity deliberated, the mirror's surface began to fluctuate, reflecting the tension and the potential for a breach. Mia and Ethan prepared for any outcome, knowing that regardless of the riddle's answer, the entity would likely attempt to exploit the situation. The story pauses at this crucial juncture, with Mia having presented her solution to the entity's riddle. The Starbucks Café charged with supernatural energy, ready to erupt. The narrative teeters on the edge of revelation and disaster, as the boundaries between realms quiver under the weight of ancient pacts, cryptic challenges, and the potential for either harmony or chaos in the intersecting fates of Mia, Ethan, and the entity locked within the mirror. Mia, now deeply entwined in the web of ancient pacts and supernatural threats, accepted the entity's challenge, her mind racing to untangle the riddle that could save both her and Ethan. The riddle, steeped in occult lore and cryptic references, hinted at the nature of the entity and the mirror's true purpose as a gateway between worlds. As Mia pondered the riddle, the entity grew impatient, its form swirling within the mirror's frame, casting dark reflections across the cafe. Ethan, freed momentarily from the entity's direct influence, shared with Mia the fragmented knowledge he had gleaned during his compelled research and interactions with the entity. Together, they pieced together clues from historical records, occult texts, and the strange occurrences within the cafe. The riddle's solution hinted at a paradox, a truth about the entity's existence. It was both prisoner and guardian of the mirror, bound to protect the gateway it desperately sought to escape through. Solving the riddle would not only release Ethan from his pact, but also reveal the method to bind or banish the entity without breaking the ancient seals that kept the worlds apart. As the night deepened, the cafe became a battleground of wills. The entity, sensing that Mia was close to the solution, manipulated the cafe's environment, distorting reality to hinder her thought process. Shadows crept along the walls, whispering doubts and casting illusions to lead her astray. Mia, focusing on the riddle's core, realized that the answer lay not in the entity's desires, but in its limitations. The riddle was a reflection of the entity's dual role, and its solution required acknowledging the entity's necessity in maintaining the balance between the worlds, as well as its desire for freedom. The story pauses as Mia prepares to articulate the riddle's solution, her answer holding the power to redefine the balance of power with the entity. The Starbucks Cafe, once a mundane setting, now stands on the precipice of a supernatural revelation. Its fate, and that of its occupants, hanging in the balance, waiting for the words that will either seal or shatter the precarious peace between the worlds. As Mia stood in the tense silence of the cafe, the entity in the mirror seemed to lean forward, its form sharpening with anticipation. She spoke her solution aloud, articulating the paradox of the entity's existence. It was bound to the mirror not only as a guardian, but also as a captive, its power essential to maintaining the gateway, yet also a seal preventing its own escape. The entity recoiled, its form rippling, as if struck by the truth in Mia's words. The cafe's atmosphere thickened, and the air shimmered with unseen forces clashing, the entity's frustration palpable. Mia, holding firm, argued that the entity's release could only be achieved by reinforcing the seal, not breaking it, thus fulfilling its desire to be freed from its duties while maintaining the balance between the worlds. Ethan, now fully aware of his role in this supernatural drama, joined Mia, offering to serve as a willing guardian to the mirror, taking on the responsibility that the entity sought to escape. His offer was not out of coercion, but understanding and compassion for the entity's plight, recognizing the need for balance and the protection of both realms. The entity, after a moment of silence, laughed, a sound both eerie and relieved. It acknowledged the wisdom in Mia's solution and Ethan's offer, its form beginning to dissolve into the mirror's surface. The cafe began to return to normal, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the entity agreed to a new pact, one that honored the old agreements while allowing for a gradual transfer of guardianship to Ethan under Mia's guidance. The story pauses with the cafe slowly resuming its mundane routine, the customers and staff unaware of the supernatural negotiation that had transpired. Mia and Ethan, now allies bound by their shared experience, prepared to delve deeper into the occult knowledge and responsibilities they had inherited, ensuring the safety of the portal and learning the true extent of the worlds connected through the Starbucks mirror. Their journey into the depths of the supernatural and the management of the ancient gateway is just beginning, with new challenges and mysteries to unravel in the continuing saga of the Starbucks, haunted by its past and the delicate balance of the realms it connects. As the new pact with the entity took hold, Mia and Ethan began their careful stewardship of the mirror, balancing their everyday responsibilities at the Starbucks with the deeper, hidden tasks of guarding the gateway. The cafe, once a site of eerie disturbances, settled into a new normal, its supernatural undercurrents a silent secret shared between them. Their partnership strengthened as they delved into the complexities of the mirror's magic and the realms beyond it. They learned to decipher the cryptic symbols etched into its frame, unlocking the layers of spells and wards that both protected and imprisoned the entity. Their studies revealed the broader network of ley lines and portals the cafe was a part of, a tapestry of cosmic balance that spanned across dimensions. However, the peace was not to last. Unbeknownst to Mia and Ethan, their interactions with the mirror had attracted the attention of other entities, curious or envious of the gateway's power. Shadows lingered longer in the cafe's corners, and the air occasionally buzzed with a charge that hinted at watched eyes. One evening, as a storm brewed outside, the mirror pulsed with an urgent glow, warning of a breach in the nearby ley line network. Ethan and Mia rushed to the mirror, where the entity, now more of an ally, communicated through fragmented images and sensations. A portal had been forcibly opened elsewhere in the city, threatening to destabilize the balance they had worked hard to maintain. The story pauses as Mia and Ethan, armed with their knowledge and newfound skills, prepare to confront this new challenge. Beyond the safety of the Starbucks, they must navigate the intricate web of supernatural forces and entities, some allies, others adversaries, to close the breach and prevent the chaos from spreading. Their journey into the hidden world continues, each step revealing more about the true extent of the powers they guard and the delicate line they walk between the known and the unknown. To conclude the story of Mia and Ethan and the haunted Starbucks with the mirror gateway, as the storm outside intensified, Mia and Ethan, guided by the entity within the mirror, traced the source of the ley line breach to an abandoned building on the city's outskirts. The building, once a grand manor, stood decrepit, its history forgotten by time. But its foundations were built upon a convergence of ley lines, now fractured and spewing chaotic energies. Inside, they found the remnants of a ritual gone awry, evidence of an amateur foray into the occult that had unwittingly torn a rift in the fabric between worlds. The air was thick with the energy of the breach, pulsing with the potential to unravel the network of ley lines and unleash untold horrors upon the world. Working together, Mia and Ethan used their knowledge and the guidance of the entity to repair the rift. They performed a counter-ritual, using the manor's residual energies and their connection to the mirror's entity to weave a stabilizing pattern across the ley lines, mending the tear and reinforcing the barriers between the worlds. As the rift sealed, the storm abated and calm returned. The mirror entity, satisfied with their success, receded into its domain, its bond with the Starbucks and its guardians stronger and more respectful. Mia and Ethan returned to the café, now truly a sanctuary and a bastion against the supernatural forces that lurked beyond the veil. In the aftermath, they continued their guardianship, using the café as a base to monitor and protect the ley line network with the help of the entity and their growing understanding of the supernatural. The Starbucks, once a place of haunting and mystery, became known among certain circles as a place of learning and alliance between the human and the paranormal. The story ends with Mia and Ethan no longer just baristas, but guardians of a threshold, their lives intertwined with the magic and mysteries of the universe. Their journey had transformed them from ordinary individuals into protectors of the balance between worlds, ensuring that the gateway in the Starbucks mirror remained a passage of knowledge and controlled power, rather than a door to darkness and chaos.